Well, good morning, folks. Your teacher, Mr. Capichetti here. We're going to be going through the variance analysis that you were assigned for homework, and we're going to continue talking about it to make sure you all have a pretty good understanding of it. I'm going to go back to the beginning, especially for those who weren't in class yesterday. First of all, why are we doing this? What is a variance analysis? A variance analysis is when we meet a client, we have to charge them. And in order to come up with a price that we're going to charge a client as an advertising agency, we need to know what our basic costs are. And our two major costs as for an ad agency is the cost of production. And that's, you can see that here. Okay. It's the labor that goes into making an ad, whether it be a newspaper ad, whether it be a TV commercial, an internet ad, it doesn't matter what it is. The labor costs, the supplies, all those other things that would go into making an ad. And then the second part of it is the actual media buy. That is, we're going to buy spots on TV, in the newspaper for a certain amount of time and frequency, as we've talked about in class, and that also costs money. Now, we haven't actually produced an ad yet, so an ad agency doesn't know exactly how much it is going to cost, so they create a budget. And in this case, our budget for this ad or ad campaign is $111,000, and that is your $45,000, which is labor of $16,000, supplies of $25,000, some other costs of $4,000 equals $45,000. We add that to the media buy of $66,000, so we're budgeting or we're estimating that the cost of this ad campaign will be about $111,000. And based on this, we can then come up with a price for a client. And we obviously want to build in a profit for our agency. So in this case, I've just made up a number. It said we're going to charge a client $140,000, which would leave us with about $29,000 in profit. However, if the client goes for that, we then have to produce the ad and actually buy the media where we can then display the ads. And in this case, that would be, once it's all said and done, we actually then know what our actual numbers are. So in this case, instead of $45,000, it actually cost us $52,920. And down on our media buy, we estimated TV was going to cost us $50,000. TV actually cost us $60,000, and so on and so forth. So as an agency, the higher our actual cost compared to our budget that's not a good thing, because if you can see here, our total costs were higher than our budget. As a result of that, we still charge $140,000. Our profits went from $21,000, and at the end of the day, we only had profits of just over $12,000. So that's not good. So the big boss will ask whoever it is to explain why this happened, and the difference between budget and actual is known as a variance. So this is a very simple worksheet where all we're going to look at is the differences between budget and actual, and to determine if it's a favorable difference or an unfavorable difference. F standing for favorable, U standing for unfavorable. So we did this in class quickly yesterday, but I'm going to go through it again. So this is a simple calculation. All we're going to do is subtract the budget from the actual to come up with a variance of 2,420, which says that our actual is $2,420 higher than our budget. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to copy, and I'm going to copy down all our formulas. If you don't know how to do that, obviously review the introduction to Google Sheets from our previous activity, or figure it out. There's many other resources to do this, or type them in manually for each cell. So as you can see, once we do that, our overall production went over almost $8,000, and our media buy went over by $9,000. we can go through each item and determine whether each item went over or under and whether it's favorable or unfavorable. So this is higher. Whenever our costs are higher, it's unfavorable. So we can simply just put a U in there to identify that. There we go. And again, so our suppliers, we went over budget, but for some reason we don't know what these other costs are, but we saved some money there. But overall, we lost. Our production went over almost $8,000. Same with our TV, it cost us more. Our newspaper ad, we saved some money, and our total media buy was unfavorable. And our overall cost was unfavorable by almost $17,000. Now the big question is why? Why? What can we attribute this $17,000 to? Which items most contributed to this increase in costs? And in this case, we can just look through it and say, okay, well, what are our biggest numbers? And if you do that, you can see, well, there's a combination of an increase of production costs, an increase in media buy. And which specific items, if you want to answer the boss, you could tell the boss, well, we seem to go way over in some of our suppliers. So when you're explaining it, almost $7,000 of the $8,000 came from increased cost to suppliers, as well as a minor overage in costs of actual, but we did save some money in our other expenses. Now down in media buy, you could explain to whoever's asking that our TV blew our budget. So under an explanation, we can type in something to the effect of our supplier costs contributed most to our overage in production. And you could go into detail about this, and I would expect you to. Okay, I'm not going to for this example, but go on for a full explanation. Okay, on the other side, I would say under media buy, overage was a result mainly due to TV costs. There's a lot more you can put in here, but that's just a quick example of what you could say. Okay, and overall, you could also make a comment about our profits, and in this case, our profits went down by almost $17,000, and that's probably the biggest item that people would be concerned about. Okay, so that is a basic variance analysis, budget versus actual. Now we also talked about a more detailed variance analysis. In order to do that, we can look at the second tab on this worksheet, which is a detailed analysis. And we looked at this really quickly yesterday. And as we talked about in our examples, a variance can result in a difference of estimated cost versus actual cost. But in the case of labor, in terms of labor and production, there's two components of this estimated cost, and that is the number of hours we worked and the rate that we charge. So what we want to know, if you look here, for account planning, this estimated cost was $1,800, and the way we got that is if you look in the formula bar, you can see we're just multiplying our hours times our rate to get our $1,800. So in account planning, we spent 12 hours working on it, and we're going to charge a client $150. That's how we came up with that $1,800. Now, over under actual cost, it cost us more than the estimated cost of $1,800 by about $300, and we can do the math over on this side later on, but we can just look and make some sense. Now, why did it go up? Well, if we compare these numbers and just use some common sense, our rate, our estimated rate, and our actual rate are the same. So as a result of that, there's no effect on our actual cost because our estimate is the same as your actual. So why was there an increase? Well, in this case, you can look and see Well, our actual hours were 14, but we estimated there to be 12 hours that we're going to spend on it. So it went 2 hours over. In 2 hours, at $150, it accounts for that $300 overage. So what you're going to do is actually show this numerically. So AH versus minus EH, which is actual hours, 14, minus our estimated hours. So we went over by 2 hours. And I'm actually going to center all this stuff to make it look a little nicer. There we go. And if we went over by 2 hours, this is a simple comment line. Is it favorable or unfavorable? Well, it's unfavorable to us because it took longer. It's going to cost us more. How about the rate? Well, if we do actual rate minus estimated rate, there's no change. And we can prove it by doing this. There we go. Okay, so there was no change. Is this favorable or unfavorable? Neither. So I'm just going to put an N in there. I should probably put that up here, but I'm showing you now. Now the overall cost variance. What we're going to do is, what's the difference between the two? We already know this because we do the AC minus EC, and there's a $300 variance. So far, so good. You're following me? Okay. Let me shrink this a little bit just so we can try to fit more on the screen here for you. And if we look at this, is this $300 favorable or unfavorable? Well, we already said it's unfavorable. You can go through and format it as you go. I didn't do everything for you. Okay. Now, what we want to do is determine, as we said before, how much of this $300 is because of time, how much is of it is because of rate. Well, we can use some common sense, and we know without even using mathematics that there was no change in rate, so it is all as a result of hours. Okay, but if we were to do the math, I've laid it all out for you over here. All we're going to do is do our actual hours minus our estimated hours. Now, we can actually put that whole thing in, or if you notice, we've already done this little part of the equation over here, which is J4. And we're going to multiply it, okay, by our estimated rate. And that's our $300 right there. And again, my formatting isn't great for your template. Okay, but you guys can fix this as you go. It isn't perfect. Now our rate, we know this should equal 0 because our rate hasn't changed. But just mathematically, if we wanted to, again, if we wanted to do our actual rate, okay, minus our estimated rate, okay, and we're going to multiply it by our original hours. So actually our formula is wrong. It should be sorry, this should be actually our difference in hours. No, sorry, there we go. Our estimated hours, there we go. So if we had our rate at $160, okay, well then our difference is $22.40. Okay, so which is over here. So that's our actual cost is $22.40. I just made a little change, but anyway, I'm just confusing you there. Don't even worry about it. I'm just testing it. So if you could all make the change, this should say estimated hours, not actual hours. Okay, I'll center that as well. So just to repeat, Now what we're going to do is take our two rates, our actual rate minus our estimated rate. In this case, they're both the same, so it's 0. So we know it's going to be 0. But later on, this will change. Okay? And if we just add these two together, that shows our total variance equals our cost variance. Just to double check we're doing it right. We've included everything in there. So now if you want to explain to somebody, well, what happened based on this math, you can see, well, account planning was a result of 2 hours overtime. Rate stayed the same. That didn't affect it. It's just whoever was doing the account planning went overtime. Okay, so whoever's managing the project obviously want to keep our hours under control. Keep that in mind later on. Okay, now we can do this for each of these lines, and I want you to do that. Notice on the next line we have hours of 24. Our actual hours are 20. Okay, so our costs are 3,600 versus 3,000. So this is a favorable change. Our costs are lower. So I want you to fill these in. Now notice our rate, again, didn't change. So it's all attributed to, the variance is attributed to hours. Okay, so I'm going to go through one more example and then a small one from the bottom. So the next one, just look at it closely. Our hours are different, but our rate is also different. So think about it in this sense. It's funny because our estimated cost is lower than our actual, so we did go over. The question is why? Well, look at the hours. Our hours went over, but our rate went down. Okay, so we want to look at how much did each of these two components cost us. Okay, so let's do our calculations. Well, we went over by 19 hours. That is a lot, so we're going to put a U in there. And our rate actually went down by $15. Okay, that's favorable. Okay, and our total cost variance is just this, minus our estimated cost. So it went, it was higher by 2,700. That's not good. So that is unfavorable. Now the question is, why? And I want to be specific. Okay, so we can just look at our formula and say our actual hours minus our estimated hours, which we've already done over here, which is 19, multiply it by our estimated rate, which is $200. So if everything else stayed the same and our rate was $200, we would have gone over budget by $3,800. Okay, but there's also something that happened with our rate, which is, again, our actual rate minus our estimated rate, which we've also done over here. You're going to multiply that by our estimated hours. So if everything else was the same and our rate changed, okay, we would have saved $800. And we did save $800. However, you can see that our change in time greatly overshadowed what we saved in rate. Okay, and that didn't quite, what didn't I do there? There we go. So it should be actual hours. I don't know what I was thinking, guys. It's getting late at night here tonight. Okay? So, yes, sorry. Keep it as actual hours. Okay? So it is our actual rate minus our estimated rate. And we saw over here it went down by $15. Multiplied by the actual hours that we worked. Okay, so 3,800 we went over in time. We saved just over $1,000 in rate, but overall we spent an extra $27.20. So what you need to do is fill in this, and then simply talk about the cost variance for each of these components here and here. Just do the difference and state whether they're favorable or unfavorable. Now if you look down at the bottom, we have our total cost of 111 versus 107. So our cost actually went down. So what I want you to do is explain very specifically down here why our total cost went down. And if you were to do a variance analysis, cost going down is a good thing. So we did something right here. If our costs go down and we said before that we were charging the client 140,000, okay, and 140,000, simply this minus this, that's what our profit would be. Our price, these costs are a little bit different than the front page, but that's irrelevant. Our profit actually went up to 32,300, which is a good thing. Okay, and the question again is why did it go up? Not too many people are probably going to question you when we have more profit than we originally thought. It's usually the other way around, but we still, as an agency, need to know and attribute and account for all the difference between budgets and actual. You can see now why we're tracking hours so that we can test out our estimates versus our actuals, and if there are any rate differences, we can explain those as well. Okay, so without any further ado, work through this and come up with a detailed explanation. Once you're done that, you're comfortable with all that, I would like you to work on the more advanced worksheet also in Canvas. Okay, good luck guys, and we will take it up as soon as I